just got acquired for just over $2 billion, or just was sold actually by private equity groups. I'm not sure who. Oh yeah, Louis Vuitton, right?
Yeah. No, no, it was the parent company of Vans and
Vans, there it is.
Vans and North Face and
Thank you, friend.
can't remember the name of the company though.
I'm blanking too, but I do know it was the
Is it
Carlyle Group
VC?
involved in Supreme, and they
Yeah,
came in very like relatively early. I mean, it was a few years back. It was
2017 they came
yeah,
in.
right when Supreme had crossed into national relevance, but they weren't, to my understanding and from what I had heard, they were not um, beyond the 100 million revenue mark. From my understanding, they may have been slightly past it, but they were early from the
Yeah,
standpoint of building a brand is what I'm trying to get across. And for a private equity group, one of the biggest challenges when you're flipping a brand specifically, especially something with so much cultural appeal as a Supreme, is being able to retain the brand's authenticity while you're expanding the channels in which it's distributed through and expanding the product offerings to be able to grow revenue. So Supreme grew entirely on scarcity, right?
yeah,
That scarcity is what gave them the authenticity. And then, as we saw, fakes just became like the thing everywhere,
yeah.
and every brand started replicating their iconic, red background, white text logo, and the fonts is just Futura, I believe, just italicized, which is almost the same as Nike's font,
They
but it
actually
just wasn't in
stole it
all
from an
caps.
artist.
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
she it's very fascinating, and you bring up a couple of great points. Like from a marketer standpoint, it's really fascinating what they did. Because like you said, the thing is I'm very interested to see how Carlyle Group gave it based on their investment. They valued it at $1 billion company, right? Um, they bought 50% stake for 500 million. So it's valued at $1 billion. And it's like you said, way that they've built their business, their value is greater on a company like StockX on the secondary market than it is actually to Supreme. But to study their model, I've been fascinated by Supreme, like how they even release, right? Like they drop a line every season and they dry a bunch of different products and they release every Thursday at 11 a.m. So they remind people, everybody, that this is what you need to expect. This is what to expect from Supreme. 11 a.m. comes, products are sold out. They only have 11 stores. They're sold out. And it's not like the actual base price of a lot of these products isn't at the same price point as a Louis Vuitton or a Gucci or one of the higher land brands. But what happens immediately is there's a whole economy from the first buyer who then flips it for almost 10 times, then that next buyer that flips it again. And it's all based on a theory called conspicuous consumption. And conspicuous consumption is the consumption of goods to show other people that you have money, right?
Yeah.
That you're prestigious. And Supreme captured that perfectly, right? And that's why, and it plays on human psychology and behavior economics, which is it shows you how much insecurity there is in this world, right? Like, and Supreme initially was built on. I fully don't understand this. Is their founder observed that a lot of just skaters were wearing streetwear and wearing luxury brands like Louis and Gucci, and was like, okay, let me create this brand. I still don't understand. I guess most skater kids are from rich families because I don't know how they have the money to consume all this stuff, but they drive the narrative of fashion to a high level. Um, and then also like a company like StockX comes in and does this. So what is, and it's like, I still don't fundamentally understand what the baseline value of Supreme is, considering their model, only 11 stores. It's not like they're doing billions of dollars in sales, but there's only 168 companies in the US that are valued at over $1 billion. And Supreme is one of them. And then now the Carlyle Group came in, like you said, private equity, and was able to do what their aim was, which is come in, make a $500 million investment, got flipped for 2.1 billion. So they, in a period of 2 years, they made 100% on their investment, right? I really want to get your thoughts on this, in terms of, does it even matter if the value is real or not, if the market has a value for it?
So value's not real. Value's
Yeah.
subjective, always, right? And there's like this is like my beef with MBAs because they try to use formulas for everything. In fact, a lot of investors try to do the same thing, but you can't necessarily value brands the same way you value traditional companies. And Supreme is probably one that has a ridiculous multiple on their revenue. No
Yeah.
real, intellectual property beyond maybe their trademarks, and no real ability to enforce against knockoffs, which
Yeah.
are abundant
Prevalent.
with
Yeah.
Supreme. Yeah. So what people are looking to own when they buy a Supreme is the ear of a market, right?
Yeah.
Supreme has an email list. Supreme has a community of a very, very valuable demographic that's just now aging into um, basically that 20s like high spending on fashion demo,
Yeah.
right? So if I'm if I'm Vans, which has had a lot of growth recently as well, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at the opportunity to do these collaborations, and basically you're seeing the value as the growth in revenue on your other brands.
Yeah.
Because if you have Supreme, it's this kind of interesting thing where you don't want it to get too big. The value is going to grow, but you don't want the product to be too abundant
Yeah.
because it'll lose its value. And that's something a lot of private equity groups don't necessarily understand about how to retain a brand. And Supreme's one of those that builds on exclusivity, and that's why this is so important. But there's a lot of other brands that I know about, and I don't want to call anybody out, but there's one that I know about that got invested in by a private equity group. Um, it was in similar space, appealed to surfers, skaters in that world. Um, the founder didn't want to take it to Costco, and the private equity group wanted to. And they fired the founder as CEO and brought in somebody else, and they took it to Costco. They doubled their revenue, and then it went down to a quarter of what it was the following year. And the reason that happens is because when you go to mainstream, you lose your initial base. And that's what
Yeah.
gives it the coolness is the people who are initially buying it and wearing it. It's like I'll give you from the lasso lens, like how we think about it. So when we're growing the brand, we're putting products into the place, we have an initial set of people that buy our products, and then we have ways that we use the products to storytell. Exclusivity is not something we use drastically because our aim is not to be something people can't have, but it's to be an essential for people on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So our brand strategy and like the ways you would grow our company are drastically different than if we were to be using exclusivity. If we were to be doing custom collab drops, 100 of each design only, and that's the only thing we were doing, the price point would be higher. We would be, doing a lot more on that side of the ball, but we wouldn't be able to grow our team very much. We wouldn't be able to really do a ton other than retain a significant amount of leverage culturally. And I think the next play when you have that is you go down the content landscape and you start,
Yeah.
programming content for your community. You start telling bigger stories around your brand. I think a brand that's done that really, really well is Red Bull. I think they have
Yeah.
one of
They
the
have.
best content strategies, period. And so, Supreme, I mean, I love it. I love everything they've built. I think their store is right down the street from me, so it's cool to drive by and see lines outside and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing that you can make a thing that when you slap this sticker onto it or this icon or this logo, it's all of a sudden worth way more to people.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about behavioral economics, right? And understanding it actually goes against economic principles, right? Because
Yeah,
Supreme is what's considered a Veblen good. I'm sure you're familiar with that term. But for people, it's like the the demand for the product actually goes up as the price goes up.
yeah,
And that's the opposite of normal, but it goes into understanding that even all these principles are great, but once you factor in human beings and human psychology and human insecurity, because the largest market for Supreme are people who are probably insecure with themselves in other ways. But Supreme gives them that. Putting on a Supreme hoodie immediately gives them that which they're seeking, which is acceptance and confidence. And there's not a value you can put on that. And
Yep.
that right there is what drives brands like Supreme. It's the same reason why people wear Gucci and Louis. It's to show other people that you have something. Me personally, I don't like really wearing any of those type of brands, because I don't like attention like that. I don't want everyone recognizing me for what I'm wearing, because I think that
Yeah.
makes you a target too, right? So, but they're very different schools of thoughts. I think I'm in the minority, especially when you're looking at, like you said, Gen Z and millennial consumers who now are buying luxury and premium goods at a much higher clip than any other generation that's alive currently.
Yeah. And just to say it one more time, I just can't even begin to express how difficult a flip like this is on a business that is built like Supreme. It just has so much nuance in their business model. It's the kind of thing where you can't do it without the founder involved. So watching this happen for me is very similar to watching the Lakers win that championship this year. I mean, it's flawless execution, it's a ton of preparation. It's why the Carlyle Group is one of the most respected private equity firms in the world.
Yeah.
That's why they're so huge, because nobody else. I would be hard pressed to name more than one other private equity firm that would do this successfully. And
And
it's
this
just,
quickly. It's
yeah,
been 2 years,
that's hard.
and in a recession,
Yeah,
it's quite amazing. And one last thing that I wanted to ask you about is, I think, is the StockX component of this, the resale market of goods. Because I think part of what makes Supreme so valuable is the fact that it has value in a secondary and tertiary economy, right? Other people can make money off of it without having to pay
right.
with multiples. What do you think is driving that? Because StockX is making a killing right now, doing nothing except for providing a service for these goods.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I think one thing to kind of outline here is that most of the buyers and resellers are young.
Yeah,
A lot of this community is young. So when young people who already have insecurities are exposed to the internet, where at any moment, whatever video they click, they're going to see somebody who's doing it better than they are, whatever it is, or somebody who's making more money, or somebody who's more accomplished, or somebody who's wearing cooler clothes. And that's like the trend element here is really, really driving into your point to those insecurities. And a lot of these kids want to wear the brands because it makes them fit in, it makes them look cool. But for us, it was like, I'll tell you, like when I was growing up, is the Nike Shocks. Like that was
yeah,
the thing, right?
yeah,
That was what made you cool. And now it turns into all these streetwear and fashion brands. And now these new kids are starting to make their own brands, tell their own stories. And that's interesting. When you talk about the resale side of this market, it's something that, to be honest, I'm not sure I understand as deeply as I would like to,
yeah.
because it puzzles me, because I'm
Hmm.
not, I think it's part of the values that I grew up under, but kind of in traditional, I would say traditional Indian values, it's not looked well upon to wear used clothes,
Yeah,
because I think the superstition is that they still carry the energy or like the luck of the
yeah,
past person that wore them. And so I've never been into resale for that reason, but it's turning into a huge part of American culture. And I think it's just a way for people to be able to own something, even briefly. Like if you want to wear the Supreme thing, or buy a pair of Jordans that, you might never wear, people might just buy them for the photo shoot and then sell them right back.
yeah. I mean, what's happening is the same thing. People are literally who are on the email list and are able to get a Supreme product. They're selling it new, right? They're flipping it on stock. That's why it's called StockX. That they're operating these things like they're
Yeah.
stocks. And like you said, it might be the second or third person before it's actually worn,
Yeah.
which is amazing as well. And it goes to show you, I mean, just the value that people put on um, being respected, being liked, and being recognized.
So here's the question for you. Is a product worth more if it's sold at a low price point? Okay, let's say we have like a wallet from Supreme.
Yeah,
Let's say it's sold for 50 bucks and then it's resold for 400. That's the market value of that wallet.
yeah,
Is that worth more than a Louis Vuitton wallet that sells for $400?
it definitely is. It definitely is, because there's an intrinsic value there that's higher than what it's being sold at, right? It's the same concept of why we buy a stock, right? Buy low, sell high. The fact that that actually exists on something that's actually a consumption product is one of the most fascinating things about a brand like Supreme. They know that they could sell their product for probably a higher price point than they do, but they don't, because they recognize the value that comes with selling it at that price and creating this hoopla in the
Yeah.
secondary and tertiary market, because they're not making a dime
Yeah.
off of the second seller or the third seller. And that really, really impresses me, that
Yeah.
they're able to recognize that, and they don't care, because it's, you know, Gordon Gekko's thing, greed is good. It's like, we don't need to be greedy.